The 6th of April, 1941. While hundreds of Luftwaffe fighters are dropping bombs on Belgrade to conquer Yugoslavia, Nazi Germany, under the codename Operation Marita, begins the simultaneous invasion of Greece. Hitler sees Greece as a potential threat to the southern flank of his planned attack on the Soviet Union and wants to secure crucial supply routes for German forces in the Balkans and southeastern Europe. The German 12th Army, commanded by Field Marshal Wilhelm List and supported by additional Italian and Bulgarian troops, conquers Greece in several weeks. Following the surrender, local partisans continue to fight against the Germans and their allies, who terrorize the local population and commit unspeakable crimes against civilians. After the occupation, German forces launch brutal reprisals against the civilian population in response to growing partisan resistance. On the 5th of April 1944, soldiers from the 4th SS Polizei Panzergrenadier Division and their Bulgarian allies descend on the village of Clesura, killing 280 civilians. The victims include women, children, infants, and the elderly. The Nazis shoot villagers, disembowel pregnant women, bayonet babies, and burn people alive in their homes. This atrocity, one of the deadliest massacres during the German occupation of Greece, becomes known as the Clesura massacre. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The early stages of the war saw rapid German advances in Europe, with the fall of Poland, the invasion of France, and the evacuation of Allied forces from Dunkirk in 1940. Following the successful campaign in France, Hitler set his sights on the Soviet Union. However, before he could launch Operation Barbarossa, which was the codename for the invasion of the Soviet Union, he needed to secure the southern flank to ensure crucial supply routes and prevent any interference. Therefore, on the 6th of April 1941, Germany invaded Greece with rapid and coordinated assaults. The German 12th Army, consisting of around 680,000 troops and spearheaded by armored divisions, quickly overwhelmed Greek and British Commonwealth forces. Key locations such as Thessaloniki fell swiftly, and German paratroopers played a crucial role in securing strategic positions. By the 27th of April 1941, Athens had fallen, and mainland Greece was under Axis control. After the occupation of Greece, German forces soon found themselves facing a persistent and growing resistance movement. Much of this resistance came from the Greek countryside, where mountainous terrain provided excellent cover for guerrilla fighters. These groups, known as atrocities, carried out sabotage missions, ambushes, and raids on German patrols and supply lines. The most significant among them was the ELAS, the military arm of the National Liberation Front, which was politically dominated by the Communist Party of Greece. To the Nazis, this alignment with communism made the atrocities more than just local insurgents. They were portrayed in both the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, and the SS as savages and criminals who committed all sorts of crimes and who needed to be hunted down without mercy. As resistance to the German occupation of Greece intensified, the reprisals grew more violent. In the region of Western Macedonia, this violence reached a horrifying peak in the village of Clesura. On the evening of the 4th of April 1944, a group of 150 to 300 partisans, led by Alexandros Rosios, spent the night in and around Clesura. They had received information that a German convoy would soon pass through the area, reportedly transporting goods looted from Jewish-owned shops in the nearby city of Kastoria. At dawn on the 5th of April 1944, the partisans ambushed the convoy at a narrow mountain pass called Daouli. As the front of the convoy reached an arched bridge, the fighters opened fire, killing 3 German motorcyclists and destroying 2 motorcycles and a car. However, the partisans also mutilated the bodies of the dead Germans and left them on display, a provocation that deeply enraged the German officers who arrived at the scene. Before the partisans withdrew into the mountains, they had assured the villagers that the Germans would not harm women, children, or the elderly. Because of this, Only men fled into the hills, nearby settlements, or local monasteries, fearing the inevitable German retaliation. German troops entered Clesura that same day in the afternoon. They were accompanied by Bulgarian collaborators, including the notorious Anton Kauchev, a pro-Nazi Bulgarian officer. The German forces belonged to Regiment 7 of the 4th SS Polizei Panzergrenadier Division and were under the command of SS Obersturmbannführer Karl Schömers, a hardline officer infamous for his cruelty. The violence began as German soldiers calmly entered the village, gathering women, children, and the elderly in the streets and the main square, pretending they meant no harm. At the same time, a second unit of SS troops and Bulgarian auxiliaries arrived from another direction and opened fire on the civilians using machine guns. Panic erupted. Some villagers tried to escape, but many were captured. The troops began storming homes, dragging people outside and executing them. Pregnant women were disemboweled. Mothers with babies in their arms were shot. Children were bayoneted. Young girls were gunned down in their yards. Elderly men and women were killed inside their homes, some beaten to death, others burned alive. The attackers advanced through the village, killing and burning as they went. Houses were set ablaze using incendiary powder. Public buildings, including the schools and the village library, were also destroyed. Even the priest, Father Yoris Mitras, who pleaded for mercy while holding the Holy Cross, was murdered without hesitation. The massacre lasted nearly 2 hours. Around 5 p.m., a signal flare was fired, and the troops ceased their operation. By then, Clesura was in ruins. 280 civilians had been killed, almost all of them women, children, and the elderly. At least 40 others were wounded, and over 150 homes had been burned to the ground. In the days after the massacre, villagers who had hidden in the surrounding forests returned to find a landscape of horror. Bodies lay scattered among the ruins. Many of the dead had been burned beyond recognition. The village cemetery could not hold all the victims, so burials took place in courtyards, churchyards, and shallow graves along the hillsides. The massacre took place during Holy Week, a sacred time in the Orthodox calendar, adding even more emotional weight to the community's suffering. For the people of Clesura, their village had become a symbol of sacrifice and national mourning. The massacre in Clesura was part of Operation Maigavita, meaning May Storm, an SS-led campaign designed to crush resistance through mass terror. Karl Schömers believed that the local population supported the partisans and that the only way to prevent further attacks was to terrorize civilians into submission. Just 2 months later, he would go on to order a widely condemned massacre in the village of Distomo. Even some within the Nazi leadership were shaken by what happened. Hermann Neubacher, the Reich's political envoy to Southeast Europe, described the events at Clesura as a bloodbath and argued that they violated official German reprisal policy. In the aftermath of the massacre, Schömers was summoned by the German military authorities and questioned about the slaughter of women and children. He claimed that his soldiers had come under fire from partisans hiding in the village and had no choice but to respond. Despite contradictory testimony from his own men, Schömers was acquitted and allowed to remain in command. After the war, it was proven that Schömers' account had been false, as no evidence was ever found that partisans had been firing from the village during the time of the massacre. The Second World War in Europe ended on the 8th of May, 1945. Although not everyone behind the Clesura massacre was held accountable, for some, justice or even revenge eventually came. Anton Kauchev, a pro-Nazi Bulgarian collaborator, was prosecuted by Greek authorities, sentenced to death, and executed in August 1948. Karl Schömers, whose regiment carried out the massacre, died just weeks later, on the 18th of August 1944, when his vehicle struck a mine. In September of the same year, 3 months after the massacre, the 4th SS Polizei Panzergrenadier Division was transferred to Serbia and later ordered to monitor Soviet troop movements in Hungary. While it still had around 9,000 men in December 1944, the division soon suffered such heavy casualties that only 800 soldiers and 13 operational assault guns remained for defensive operations. With thousands dead, the 4th SS Polizei Panzergrenadier Division was withdrawn to Slovakia on the 31st of December 1944 and eventually retreated back to Germany, where its remnants continued fighting alongside the 1st Panzer Army. In October 1944, after years of harsh Nazi occupation, Greece was finally liberated. The German forces began their retreat in the fall, as Allied troops and Greek resistance fighters advanced, culminating in the liberation of Athens by the end of October. The occupation had left Greece in ruins, with its infrastructure destroyed and economy crippled. During World War II, approximately 350,000 Greeks lost their lives, and over 60,000 Greek Jews were murdered in Nazi concentration camps. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.